Hi, I'm Alina, and this is the story of how I learned that some people believe they're entitled to your kindness, that your generosity is a weakness to exploit. For years, I dedicated myself to building a successful animal rescue shelter, pouring my heart and every resource into saving lives, only to discover that my trusted head of operations, Brenda, was systematically embezzling funds and neglecting the very animals we swore to protect. This is the story of how I exposed her cruelty and brought true compassion back to the rescued. I still remember the pure joy of opening Pawsitive Haven, my dream animal rescue. After years of volunteering at various shelters, I saw a desperate need for a more holistic, no-kill approach. I invested my life savings and countless hours into renovating an old farm, creating a safe and loving environment for neglected animals. Brenda was one of my first volunteers, a seasoned animal lover with a warm smile and seemingly boundless energy. She quickly became indispensable, rising to head of operations. "Alina, your vision is inspiring," she'd often say, her eyes shining with shared passion. "Together, we can make a real difference for these innocent creatures." Naively, I believed her. We worked side by side, rescuing, rehabilitating, and rehoming hundreds of animals. The early days were a constant uphill battle. Funding was tight, and the work was relentless, but the wagging tails and purring cats made every struggle worthwhile. I handled all the animal care protocols, veterinary partnerships, and adoption processes, ensuring every animal received the best possible treatment. Brenda, with her excellent organizational skills and friendly demeanor, managed the volunteers, donor relations, and day-to-day operations. She was the public face of our daily work, always articulate and seemingly dedicated. My longtime veterinarian, Dr. Chen, a kind and observant woman, often gave me subtle warnings. "Brenda is very efficient, Alina," she'd once remarked, a slight pause in her voice. "But always ensure the animals come first, no matter what." I admired Brenda's ability to keep everything running smoothly and thought Dr. Chen was just being overly cautious. Pawsitive Haven grew rapidly. Within 3 years, we were a renowned rescue, known for our high success rates in rehabilitation and our extensive network of foster homes. We received significant grants and a steady stream of individual donations. Brenda, ever the charming front, reveled in the spotlight. She was constantly featured in local news segments, attending charity galas, and accepting awards. "Our success is a testament to the compassion of our community and the tireless work of our team," she'd always say in interviews, conveniently glossing over the fact that she was rarely seen directly caring for the most difficult cases or comforting frightened animals. I, on the other hand, was content to let the health and happiness of our animals speak for themselves. I believed that true care and ethical practice were their own rewards. The first hint of trouble came subtly. Supplies for the animals, particularly specialized medical foods and necessary medications, seemed to run out faster than usual, even with increased donations. Then came the unexplained discrepancies in the financial records. Small amounts at first, just a missing receipt for a large bulk order, an oddly high vendor payment that didn't quite match our inventory. When I questioned Brenda, she'd dismiss it with a casual wave of her hand. "Just an oversight, Alina. I'll sort it out. We're so busy, you know." She always had a plausible excuse, a confident smile, and a reminder of all the good work we were doing. And I, wanting to believe the best in my trusted colleague, pushed the nagging doubts aside. After all, she was handling the money, leaving me free to focus on the animals. 4 years into Pawsitive Haven's success, we were planning our annual Paw Gala, our biggest fundraising event of the year. This event was crucial for securing the funds needed for a new, much-needed veterinary wing. That's when Brenda decided to bring in her brother-in-law, Ken, as the new financial consultant for the gala. Ken was a shifty character, with a vast background in event management and a penchant for expensive watches. He's a whiz with budgets, Alina, Brenda assured me. He'll ensure we maximize every dollar for the new wing. I had a bad feeling about Ken from the start. He was overly secretive about vendors and constantly tried to steer conversations away from financial specifics. But Brenda insisted, and as head of operations, her word carried weight, especially with the other staff. With Ken managing the gala finances, the discrepancies became less subtle and more systemic. Large sums earmarked for the veterinary wing were reallocated without my knowledge, detailed financial reports became increasingly vague, and access to certain donation accounts was restricted. Crucially, the quality of animal feed and essential supplies began to noticeably decline, impacting the health of some of our more vulnerable residents. When I confronted Brenda, her demeanor hardened. The warm smile was replaced by a cold, calculating stare. Alina, you're micromanaging again, she'd said, her voice laced with an unfamiliar harshness. This is big business. There are things you, as an animal person, just wouldn't understand. Her words stung, but I pushed harder. I understand compassion, Brenda. And these actions are not compassionate. She simply shrugged, her expression unreadable, and walked away. Then came the Paw Gala itself, a glittering affair held in the city's most exclusive ballroom. Brenda had orchestrated it, emphasizing its importance for our future. I arrived early, feeling a profound sense of foreboding. Brenda and Ken were already there, looking unusually smug, their faces exuding an almost predatory excitement. As the ballroom filled with wealthy donors, local celebrities, and dedicated volunteers, Brenda stepped onto the stage, exuding her usual air of charismatic leadership. Good evening, compassionate friends and supporters, she began, her voice resonating with practiced sincerity. Pawsitive Haven stands at a pivotal moment. And to lead us into this new era of expanded impact, I am thrilled to announce a significant restructuring of our leadership. My heart pounded. Restructuring? What was she talking about? Effective immediately, Brenda continued, her eyes sweeping over the camera lenses, intentionally avoiding mine. Ken, my indispensable financial consultant, will be taking on the newly created role of executive director. This move will provide the streamlined, decisive leadership that an organization of our scale and ambition truly demands. A cold dread washed over me. This wasn't just about restructuring, this was about consolidating their control and pushing me out. For too long, Brenda added, her voice dripping with false empathy, our operational efficiency has been hampered by, shall we say, a certain overemphasis on individual animal care. While Alina has been commendable in her hands-on efforts, her focus has remained too narrowly on the day-to-day. To truly scale and achieve our ambitious goals, we need a leader with a broader vision, someone who understands large-scale financial management, strategic partnerships, and the overarching business of philanthropy. The wealthy donors exchanged confused glances, their champagne flutes clinking. I sat there, stunned, as Brenda continued her thinly veiled character assassination. Some people, she said, now looking directly at me, a condescending smirk playing on her lips, are simply better suited for the animal-facing roles, for direct care. Alina's talent lies in cuddling kittens, not in executive leadership. Her emotional attachments and lack of ruthless financial acumen have become a liability. It's time for her to gracefully step aside from any significant decision-making roles within the organization. The room was silent, the air thick with unspoken judgment. Every eye was on me, waiting for my reaction. I could feel the pity, the schadenfreude, the silent condemnation. Everything I had built, every animal I had saved, every ounce of compassion I had poured into Pawsitive Haven was being stripped away in front of everyone I knew. My mind raced, a whirlwind of anger and disbelief. Brenda had orchestrated this, meticulously, cruelly. The missing supplies, the vague financials, Ken's presence, it all clicked into place. They had been systematically isolating me, preparing for this very public betrayal. I stood up slowly, my chair scraping against the polished floor, the sound echoing through the ballroom like a gunshot. Everyone expected a scene, tears, an outburst, maybe even a desperate plea. Instead, I simply walked to the stage, picked up a small, framed photo of a rescued dog, our very first successful adoption, that was part of the gala's display, and calmly placed it on the floor at Brenda's feet. "Remember who we're here for, Brenda," I said, my voice steady, betraying none of the turmoil raging inside me. "Because clearly, you've forgotten." Then, without another word, I turned and walked out, leaving behind the stunned silence and the lingering questions in the opulent hall. That night, as I sat in my small apartment, surrounded by photos of happy adopted animals and the worn collars of those who didn't make it, I made a decision. Brenda thought she had one, but she had forgotten one crucial detail, something that would turn her moment of triumph into the biggest mistake of her cruel career. As I powered up my laptop and began typing, a small, grim smile played on my lips. Tomorrow would be interesting indeed. After all, there's more than one way to fight for those who cannot fight for themselves, and I had learned more in years of direct animal welfare than Brenda had learned in all her years of charming donors and manipulating figures. The next morning would bring changes that none of them saw coming, changes that would make them realize exactly how truly indispensable integrity and compassion really were. The next morning dawned bright and clear. I arrived at the Pawsitive Haven facility early, before anyone else, and waited. Precisely at 9 a.m., Brenda strode through the front doors with Ken by her side, both wearing triumphant smiles that were about to be wiped from their faces. "Alina?" Brenda's voice held a mix of surprise and annoyance. "What are you doing here? I thought after last night you'd have the dignity to stay home." I smiled, remembering the meticulously compiled report I had sent at 3 a.m. to the Department of Animal Welfare, local law enforcement, and every major media outlet that had ever featured Pawsitive Haven. "Just wrapping up some loose ends." "Brenda, dear," I said sweetly. "But since you're here, we should probably talk about the rescue's future." "There's nothing to discuss," Brenda interjected, her voice firm. "Ken and I are in charge now. The board has already approved it." "Ah, yes, the board," I said, pulling out my tablet. "Let's talk about that. You see, while you were busy charming donors and neglecting animals, I was actually building an ironclad case. And there are a few things you both seem to have forgotten." I pulled up a document on the office's main screen, connected to a large monitor. "First, let me remind you that the exclusive contracts with all our major veterinary suppliers, specialized food providers, and licensed foster networks, they are not held by Pawsitive Haven. They're held by Alina's Animal Allies LLC, a nonprofit I quietly established 2 years ago. Pawsitive Haven only has a sub-licensing agreement, which expires, I checked my watch, about 10 minutes ago, along with all the detailed procurement logs that conclusively prove your systematic underspending on animal welfare despite inflated invoices." The color drained from both their faces. Ken's eyes widened in horror, and Brenda's usually confident posture seemed to sag. "That's impossible," Brenda whispered, her voice barely audible. "You would never have caught us." "And that's not all," I continued, pulling up more documents. Those anonymous tips from our own volunteers about neglected animals, and the detailed records of illness and even death directly linked to insufficient care and poor quality supplies? They weren't just rumors, they were meticulously documented. Evidence, complete with veterinary reports, photos, and eyewitness testimonies. And they were all submitted to the Department of Animal Welfare and the local prosecutor's office last night. Remember those oversights in budgeting for crucial medications, Brenda? The ones you dismissed as busy startup chaos? My longtime veterinarian, Dr. Chen, whom you always considered overly cautious, has a very keen eye for neglect and a fierce commitment to animal well-being. Brenda collapsed onto a chair, her face slack with dawning realization. The financial discrepancies, the ones you brushed off as administrative errors? Yes, those ones, I said. They were just the beginning. Ken's face contorted with unadulterated panic. You vindictive little, careful, Ken, I cut him off. You might want to hear the rest before you finish that sentence. While you were busy announcing my supposedly graceful exit last night, I was ensuring that every major news outlet and every single one of our dedicated donors had all the evidence they needed for today's breaking headlines. You see, genuine compassion, unlike your ill-gotten gains, cannot be faked. Last night, I ensured the public finally knew the truth about their beloved animal rescue and its dedicated leaders. I pulled up my phone, showing dozens of notifications from animal welfare groups and news agencies already breaking the story. Would you like to know how many animal cruelty charges are already being filed? Or how many of our top donors have already announced the immediate withdrawal of their support and the initiation of legal action for fraud? The room fell silent. Through the glass walls, we could see the other staff and a few early volunteers gathering, whispers spreading as they checked their phones, their faces a mixture of shock and profound sadness. Brenda's perfect composure cracked as she frantically checked her phone, only to see it flooded with calls from angry donors and distraught board members. You can't do this, she stammered, her voice trembling. My reputation, the rescue, your reputation and the rescue's integrity ceased to exist the moment you decided to exploit innocent animals and humiliate someone who genuinely believed in their welfare, I finished for her. The one you thought you could just push aside because I spent my time caring for creatures, not counting illicit money. That illusion of compassion you built. It's crumbling right now. I stood up, smoothing my shirt. So, here are your options. Option 1, you are arrested here, in your office, in front of your staff, and face a full public prosecution for embezzlement and animal neglect, losing everything. Brenda's face was ashen. And option 2, she whispered, her voice barely audible. Option 2, you both resign, effective immediately, citing personal reasons. You cooperate fully with the Department of Animal Welfare and the ongoing investigations, offering comprehensive testimony about the entire scheme and everyone involved, in exchange for a slightly reduced sentence. You lose your personal assets, your reputations will still be in tatters, but you might avoid maximum prison sentences. Ken will also receive a similar plea bargain if he cooperates. And I, Alina, will publicly commend your courage in admitting your wrongdoings, framing it as a voluntary stepping down for the good of the animals. Ken's face had turned an interesting shade of green. You planned this all along, didn't you? You've just been waiting for the right moment to destroy us. I laughed, but there was no humor in it. No, Ken. I spent years trying to be a good, compassionate caretaker while you both took me for granted. I built this rescue on love and dedication, not on greed, while you collected illicit gains. I only planned this, I checked my watch again, about 12 hours ago, after you called my compassion a liability in front of everyone we know. The authorities are outside right now, awaiting my signal. Time's running out. What's it going to be? The next hour was a blur of paperwork, animal welfare officers, and signed confessions. By noon, I sat alone in what was now a quiet, strangely empty office, looking out at the animals playing happily in their runs. The rescue, once tainted by corruption, was now truly ours again, the animals. But the victory felt bittersweet. Trust shattered like broken glass. Dr. Chen, my kind veterinarian, came to see me that evening, a weary but proud smile on her face. Did it have to end this way, Alina? She asked softly. They gave me no choice, Dr. Chin, I replied. My voice gentle but firm. They would have continued to exploit the animals and betray the donors without a second thought. She nodded slowly, understanding but somber. What happens now? I showed her the plans I had already drawn up, a complete restructuring of Pawsitive Haven with renewed transparency, direct animal welfare funding, and a focus on expanding our rehabilitation programs. Now, we would rebuild something even stronger, a rescue truly dedicated to its mission, but this time, we'd do it without having to carry people who saw animal welfare as just a means to personal wealth. Over the next year, the newly reformed Pawsitive Haven, under my sole leadership, blossomed. Our animals thrived, our transparency won us unprecedented donor loyalty, and our adoption rates soared. Brenda and Ken were prosecuted, their names forever synonymous with animal neglect and fraud, serving significant prison sentences. We see each other only through grim news headlines of their downfall, a polite distance that masks the wounds that may never fully heal. Sometimes, late at night, I look at old photos of Brenda and me from the early days of the rescue and feel a twinge of sadness for the shared dream we once had. But then I remember that gala, the look of disdain on Brenda's face, the way she dismissed my genuine compassion. In rescue, and in life, true care is earned, not feigned. She learned that lesson too late. As for me, I learned that sometimes, the quiet ones, the ones whose focus is on the most vulnerable, are the ones you should watch out for. Because we're the ones who know how to build a case, how to uncover hidden cruelties, and how to bring down even the most charming figures when they betray the trust of the innocent. My story spread through the animal welfare community, a cautionary tale about underestimating the wrong person. These days, when I attend conferences, I often catch whispers, "That's Alina, the one who," they never finish the sentence. But they don't have to. The thriving animals and the unwavering integrity of our rescue speak for themselves. Last week, I received an invitation to speak at the National Animal Welfare Summit on Ethical Leadership and Accountability. The topic? Voices for the voiceless, protecting our most vulnerable. I accepted the invitation with a small smile, already planning my speech. After all, I have quite a story to tell. The rescue continues to thrive under its renewed commitment to honesty and kindness, but more importantly, I've found peace with my decisions. Sometimes, the strongest message you can send is simply proving people wrong. And sometimes, the best revenge isn't about destroying others, it's about rising so high that they can't help but see their own mistakes and the damage they caused. As I write this from my office, overlooking the playful animals in their sanctuary, I'm reminded of something Dr. Chin once told me: true compassion leaves no creature behind. She was right. I've moved past the need for revenge now. These days, I focus on building something truly meaningful, something that will outlast all the petty greed and self-serving ambition. I still keep a small, framed photo of the first animal Brenda and I rescued together, a reminder of why I started and why I will never stop fighting for what's right. Until then, it serves as a reminder that our greatest strengths often come from the very things others underestimate about us.